Huh? Cool. Hey guys, thanks for coming out today. I know it's not a standard day to go into conferences, so thanks for being here. Before we actually start, I want to make sure that I have the right people in the room. So this talk is not a technical talk. It is not geared towards someone that has been in cybersecurity for the past, few years, 5 years. Not someone from the industry. This talk is basically geared toward people that are IT practitioners that want to get into cybersecurity, students that want to get into cybersecurity, and other people that have no background and don't really know the industry that want to get into this industry. So if you're not from these groups, will not be mad. You could leave the room. Otherwise, you might be frustrated because you already know this stuff. Here, we got one leaving. No, we actually got one coming in. You can't see the screen. Well, it's even a better reason. Cool. So what are we going to talk about? So first, bit of intro, me. Then we're going to talk about the industry itself, the cybersecurity industry. We're going to talk about the necessary background in order to get into this industry, the training you have to do and things of that sort. Then we're going to spend some time talking about actually the industry. What is consulting work? What is technology work? And what is consumer work or enterprise work, as you would most likely see it? And then a few pointers for job hunting and some key points to conclude my thinking. So who am I? So I have a weird history. You might hear an accent here. I can talk in my Israeli accent just as much, and you will recognize me much better, but you're used to an American accent, so let's do that. So I am an ex-captain of the Israeli intelligence forces, specifically dealing with cyber warfare. It's a big thing in Israel. If you've heard the book Startup Nation, if you know a small company called Checkpoint, it's us. We've done plenty of stuff when it comes to cybersecurity. We kind of like that field. So I used to be a deputy CISO for one of our agencies, one of our basically intelligence agencies, the largest for development, the parallel to DARPA here. So I was the vice CISO for the Israeli DARPA. I went and worked for EY. As you might know, EY, Ernst & Young, more known to be an accounting firm, but the firm does consulting. So they acquired us. We were an Israeli startup doing application security testing, a firm called Hacking Tactics. We're a bunch of 14 guys that were acquired into EY, and we're a part of the global services servicing EY's clients in all matters IT security related. So consultants. From Israel, I transferred to the US, where I became a senior manager within the EY national practice. I'm based out of Houston, so took a flight to get here, and I've been talking about cybersecurity for the past few years around the world. I like to travel. I've done a talk here as well, I think 3 years ago, about social media and intelligence collection, why Facebook is an intelligence officer's dream. And I think a few people sent out emails, and I saw within the content of the emails that they want to get to know more about the industry. They have a basic understanding in it. It spun a reasonable idea for a talk. So this is the talk. So if we look at cyber, that's an exciting word, or IT security, the less exciting and meaning the same thing, it is a huge industry. Right now, just to get an understanding, the market value of cybersecurity in 2015 is $5 billion. That is a lot of money. Just think of it. I mean, you just can't really take it to any other industry and say it is so big. And by 2020, $170 billion. It's just inconceivable when you think of this, the amounts. Most of the amounts will be consumed on technology and not on consulting, as we will talk about. But then again, it's still something that, people are spending a lot of money. Think of the fact that you will spend even the billions of dollars for just specifically for cybersecurity, for cybercrime is just $101 billion. I mean, it's just, if you just break down cybercrime, you don't take it down with cyber terror, with so much vectors and so much money floating around, and it's costing billions of dollars to the business. So it's a good starting point to say, if you want to get into this job, you'll probably have something to do for the next at least 20 years. So when we look at this industry, we try to split it down. Like, you don't know anything about cyber and you want to get into it. So the common elements are these. First, consulting. Like myself, firms that are here to help you, that are here to fix an idea, to fix a process, to fix a technology, to fix something, okay? And who was it? I think in the keynote, the guy said that consultants are the guys that are paid to read the manual. So, yeah, a lot of times he's absolutely right. And just sometimes the company just doesn't know what manual to go after, so we have to find that manual and go after that one and try to implement it and fix it. You have technology. Remember I mentioned checkpoint? The checkpoints of the world, the security appliances of the world, all of the big vendors and the big security technology companies. They're a very big part of this industry. They are the one looking out after this $75 billion statement. They're like, okay, I want to go after that market because I want to own that specific segment. So that's the technology bit we're talking about. And at the end, the consumers. People that actually go through and work with these appliances, work with the consultants, and try to defend the organizations that they're working with. So a major part of the industry. So one of the common questions is, how do I get in? Like, what sort of training do I need? I mean, I went to school and I studied IT, but I didn't exactly major in cybersecurity. How does that go? So many questions. So one of the things that I do recruiting for EY as well. And when I look at this, first I look at experience. That is the single most thing and the single most important thing that I would tell you to emphasize. So you're probably saying, wait a minute, Johnny, I mean, we're all without the right background. So what kind of experience would we have? So going to conferences, talking to people, networking is a valid experience. If you take it on and you'd be able to have a conversation topic with the recruiter about something that really bugs you about IT security, things that you believe that you could have done better, even if you really couldn't have done it better, but you have an idea. Really, just sometimes on the other end of the phone, when I'm interviewing someone, there's a dead silence that I want to be filled, and not by me, because I'm already working for EY. I want the other guy to tell me. So it's very important to talk about what have you did. And it really could be small things, like you contributed to the community, you wrote a script that fixes something and you believe could be fixed. And not necessarily about fixing, sometimes, just exploiting. And that's completely legit. But there, I would caution you to be very careful. A lot of us, when somebody says, yeah, well, I broke this machine while I walked into this network, that's a red alarm for us. So do everything with the right caution. You don't want to go and, so the first keynote was go into Best Buy and try to hack everything. No, you will not. I mean, you could, right? I mean, technically, but you would probably not get a job with Best Buy or with a lot of the other consultancies because there's a measure of responsibility that the tester has. We all know that things are broken, and the concept is we want to make it better. If we go poke out these people, nothing will change. We want to be responsible. So finding out the issue is very relevant. So yeah, so within your experience, if you've found something, nobody hired you, but you found it, that could be a legitimate topic to talk to someone like myself. one of the most important things is the mindset. Everybody talks about this attacker mindset. And you know, even back in the army, when we interview, and yeah, we interview, we're like, only the intelligence community is allowed to interview. So as you probably know, in Israel, you have a mandatory 3-year service. So everybody goes into the army. So how can you really interview with everybody going in? So the intelligence forces get a specific exemption, and they're like, okay, we're the only service that is allowed to disqualify people from going and serving. So as a young officer, you have an option to try and track and find these right individuals. So we're out to finding that attacker mindset. Who is this person that is 18 years old? He does not have any experience. Now I need to be able to tell the world, or more likely my commander, that I believe that he can actually graduate from our course and he would be a good attacker or defender, depending where he comes to. So we need to spot these people. So a lot of spotting the mindset is people that just don't get why are stuff the way they are. You walk into a conversation, and it's something that is a conversation stopper. You know, you go and you talk to people about even the stupidest stuff you wouldn't believe. Like, how on earth would a ship stop mid-sea? How does it work? Has nothing related to IT security. Just nothing. It's just a logical question. How are you able to stop a ship? So we do all sorts of these psychotechnical analysis, and the whole concept is just to find those people that defy, that specifically don't get the right answer, but they try to. They tried. You don't really, you can't really stop fully in mid-sea. And it's completely legit. But we want to get that mindset that says, okay, I don't know, but let's find out. So let's logically break down this problem and find it out. So we're looking for that balanced thought that is not stressed. Because, you know, a lot of people during interviews, you'd be asked something and then you'd be, that's the worst. And it's like, okay, take a minute. Say, okay, good question. Let me think on it for a second. Don't be afraid of pauses at that point. That's a good time to pause. And sometimes saying, I don't know, is a valid answer. Because we sometimes need these people as well. If you ever listen to Freakonomics, you should hear about an episode that talks about I don't know. Amazing one. So when it comes to education, most of the veterans in this industry don't really believe in formal education. It's a shocker, isn't it? Because for years we've been saying we don't really get quality from university, people that have studied something that could be very much applied onto cybersecurity. For years that has been so. It hasn't been for the past 3-4 years. This has changed. Programs have opened up, and universities are taking a stab at this and doing some good work. So there is one thing I can tell you, is that please do not assume that I know what your program is. Okay? Talk to me. What sort of research has your program did? What was the tasks that your professor gave you? Go and walk me through it. I don't know it. I haven't done any formal education, when it comes to cybersecurity. And most of us haven't. Because it's a new thing. The next thing is certifications. Out of that $75 billion industry certification, we're taking a large part of it. So everybody is like, okay, you know what, I'll get my CEH, then I can go and start interviewing. I went into Wikipedia just to get the rough estimate on how many security training certifications are there, and I was amazed. I thought there were 20 or something like that, but it's more like 70. And we don't, people that are from the industry would not necessarily know all of them. And it's not necessarily good or bad to have a certificate. It really, really, really depends on where you're trying to get into. Okay? If you want to be a pen tester, of course, SANS training is very good. But if you go after the offensive security certifications, which are very hard because they have a lot of technical background, they're very good as well. So you need to really fit and see that your certifications are towards where you actually want to go to. You could have a valid Cisco certification, like a CCNA, and that could be very valid because somebody knows that you know the basics of things. And it is important because a lot of people don't know the basics of things, and they just go and start and poke out applications without knowing what runs on the back end. So, as the guy before me said, background here is very, very important. You're not born a cybersecurity guy. Everybody has something in their past. Either being a developer, being a general IT practitioner. Experience really matters here. Because sometimes people try to invent the wheel, and it's the worst thing when you're talking about cybersecurity. So it's very important that you choose the right one, not necessarily because it's the most technical one, but the one that really fits with what you want to do. If you want to have a IT risk background, that's okay. A lot of certifications there. But if you want a technical one, don't get an IT risk one. Don't get an IT risk one and go interview to be a pen tester. It would not help you. It would not help the cause. So let's talk about the industry. So first, consulting. So I think it's the best job ever, but I've been doing it for like 5 to 6 years. So I might be the right person to ask if it is or it isn't. When I look at consulting and cybersecurity, I break it down to 3 types of consultants. So first, you have the management consulting, which is the most broadest types of consulting, and we will go one by one. You'll have the technical guys, those pen testers guys that I told you about, and we have the technology people, the people that help you move along your organization into the right direction after the management consulting guys said you should go there. So the management consulting, as you probably all know, is a very broad term to everything that you can manage. So how do I improve processes in my business? So cyber is no different. Cyber is a big issue. We need now to know what we need to have in our organization, how do we prioritize it, and how do we put it on a roadmap with proper initiatives and manage it for the next 5 years. So what management consulting in cyber is a way to establish a program for cybersecurity in an organization. As you understand, cybersecurity is not just one appliance that you buy. Companies that really take this matter seriously have big departments, staff with like 50 people that need to know what are they messing around with. It's not people that, go out putting fires. It's people that have ad hoc functions and have specific capabilities and specific job descriptions. So management consulting is all about building out what are they going to do. Should we have network monitoring on premise? Then we need to build out a network monitoring program. Should we have an incident response program? How does that work? Who are the right people? How do we recruit them? How do we find them? Who needs to manage them? All of the processes that could relate to it. So these consultants will go and look after people, technology, and processes to see if they do or they don't. They don't. They recommend initiatives, and the organization manages these initiatives. So they move along with it. They do assessments on how mature is the organization compared to other organization within its specific industry and sector. So these are these management consulting people. Management consultant have sometimes a lot of people that don't come from technical background. They know management. They know basic concepts of these are the things that you do need within an organization. These are the things that you don't. And let's try and work it out. A lot of times you will have a lot of junior positions within management consulting for cybersecurity because there's a great demand for programs like this. And it's something that is easily trained. Something you can pass on without having a lot of background. because it's mostly structured. You have people with a lot of background, but you'll have a lot of staff people that don't necessarily have the right background. Moving on are the guys that everybody likes to talk about. I come from this. This is what I do, which is the technical guys, the technical consulting guys. Granted, this is the sexiest part of the industry, I think. These are the guys that do the technical assessments, or the guys that do social networking, social engineering. We break into an organization with the right approval, walking through the door officially, and trying to hack into the organization. So you would find positions for penetration testers that do just about everything. For penetration testers, as I said, depending on the route that you take, either application or infrastructure, because depending on companies, there's a difference. We know that there are so many technologies out there that one person cannot just rule them all. So you'd have people that specifically do application security. Ex-developers, that's great to come from a background like this, because a lot of the things, as the previous talk was about, fixing an XSS is a complex issue sometimes. So you need someone which is actually an ex-coder to talk to the developers and say, this is the things that you need to do, and this is how you should do it. So pen testers are mostly very technical, therefore need to have some sort of background. And on the infrastructure side, you would have people that are ex-network engineers, mostly, that have that relevant background, and they know, and that's the most important thing. If you don't have the right background, you just run commands, and you don't know why is the input the way it is. When you come from, for example, a network background, you know why would that network engineer do that. And you know automatically where to go look for. Okay, this is a financial company. I know that they have a lot of branches. They work with probably OSPF or MPLS. So therefore, I'll go in and attack these types of things. And intuition. It's not like you don't have a methodology. Everybody has a methodology. But if you come from the right background, you just spice up that methodology and you find everything, the real interesting stuff with a lot more ease. So very versatile backgrounds here. When I say network, it doesn't have to be network. You can come from a guy that does backups, but really knows the organization. So much into this specifically. So I personally believe that this is the most interesting part in terms of consulting, but, subjective probably. The other part are the incident responders. The incident responders are part of the technical consultants as well. These are the guys that will come in after the breach and will start to investigate the business. And when I say the business, I don't mean the actual business, but the actual breach. You'd be surprised. People from all sorts of background, they think that, shouldn't organizations have this capability inside? So when you come to an organization that has been breached, there is chaos, even if they have good processes in place. It's like if you're a doctor, okay, and you're in a car accident. Of course, you know everything to do, but, the actual chaos that went around you just confuses you. So you can't really do anything. So that's a very good explanation to why organizations will take incident responders, because the incident responder, and I've done many of those as well. You come into an organization which is completely, dismay. You have the C-level executives in a room that they've never seen in their lives. And they're talking around and they're pushing people. And one of the first things as a consultant that people from the company just can't do is you ask all of the C-level executives to leave the room. Tell them that, guys, you're stressing out your people. Nothing good will happen from this. You're the calm guy. So if you have good capability, you're ease to do certain things. I like people that come to incident response that they're older people, because they're wiser. They've seen stuff happen. They've seen stuff break, and that it's not the end of the world. So, it's very important here. A lot of the training, there are certifications on incident response. A lot of SANS training there, and a lot of vendor-specific training. You have the end cases, the software that you actually do the work with, depending on, whatever vendor you work with. So there is good training capabilities here, and there are a lot of positions for incident responders, either within organizations or as specific consultants. But please remember this. You have to be someone which is calm. They would not tell you that in the interview. And if you cannot work in a stressful, very stressful environment, this is not the work for you. So please keep that in mind. Moving on. Other types of consultants are technology consultants. Technology consultants are the guys that you would probably say, okay, well, you talked about technical, so what's the difference with technology consultants? So no. Technology consultants are very focused. They're focused on a problem. So as you remember, the management consulting guys said, okay guys, you need to improve your software development lifecycle program to match the relevant advancement within cybersecurity. And the company would go, okay, well, what does that mean? So you need to start an initiative. So what does that mean? Well, it means that you need to recruit the right people. You need to add specific software into your platform. You need to change the development cycle. You need to integrate controls into your development. You need to train your programmers to code better. You need to create a ninja position, somebody that will be a software security architect within various departments. And they would come to you and say, but how do we do it? You'd go, well, I have just a guy for you. So these are the technology guys. The technology consultants are here to solve a very well-defined problem. They have experience with one specific field. They're not the pen testers that will just walk across every specific field. Pen tester, you need to know just a bit from everything, but you don't have to be an expert on something specific. You could, but it doesn't specifically help you. So a good example is software security, because we have a lot of stuff, how to actually add the value and add the right people into the organization. So you have people that come from specific backgrounds and they go and manage these specific operations. These would be consultants that would have long-term stay within a specific client. They would spend a lot of time there, build a good relationship, work with engagement that are 6 months. Pen tester will come into the organization a week, 2, 3, 4 is like, doesn't happen. And then he moves on. These kind of consultants know everything about the people they're working for. It's like he's an employee of the company, but then he leaves after 6 months. You would find these positions in IAM, which is identity management, identity access management. People that want to, basically every technology that has a process behind it. Okay, that you can't just, so IAM is the whole way that you manage identities within the organization. So companies like Oracle will come to you and says, I have Oracle IDM, just install it. So you can't, because you have to sync it with all of the relevant databases that the organization has, all of the relevant access systems. You need to define the processes. It is such a complex issue. Doesn't mean you don't have to do it. You just need to have consultants to do it for you, because you just wouldn't be able to do it on your own. So IAM, security monitoring, guys that do security operations centers, guys that manage your vulnerabilities, and guys that do your software security. It's basically everyone that says, okay, we have a technology, we need to understand the process behind it. If I were to go and say pros and cons, then the first thing that, I like it, of course, and a lot of the consultants get to see new environments every 2 to 6 weeks, okay, depending on the type of consultants. So you need to understand that that's one of the major challenges. Sometimes when you stay in place, a lot of these consultants like to see more, because that's how you get better, actually. If you see more infrastructure, more types of applications, more technology, because conferences are not enough and training are not enough. So the beauty of consulting is that you just see, you don't go to conferences and you hear about the latest stuff. You probably had a client that had this technology installed. Every talk within this conference, I have a client that has something related to it. So it's never news. That's the beauty of consulting. Once you're there, you're always on top of these stuff. You'll probably never lose a discussion topic while you're in the business. But if you like your house, this is not the job for you. You get to travel at least 80% of the time. At least, really. I mean, that's the beauty of the US at the end. You don't know where your clients will be. So you'd be on a plane just about every Friday or every Saturday or Sunday, depending on the requirement of the client. If you're an incident responder, you'd be on a plane every potential hour. You could be on call. So, it really depends. If you have a flexible lifestyle that would enable that, that's okay. It's very good. Some positions, like technology consultants, are, more loose. They travel less, because they're more stable, so you can find. But then again, you could have a client that you work for 6 months, but he's 4 states away from you. So it's the same environment, but it's still a lot of travel. And it's a stressful environment most of the time. Again, unless you're a technology consultant, most consultants are, when's the deadline? When do we get the report? Can we get a draft report? Because before we get the actual report, we want to review it. But I'm working on the report, and I'm on the last week of reporting. No, we want to get a draft. So you want me to start reporting before I'm supposed to? Okay, there's so much stress. You end up working in weekends a lot of times just to get the demands. And again, that's where the calm people that have experience, that know, yeah, I've seen clients that asked for this before. It's okay. I will not work the weekend for this. I will wait. So if you're that kind of person, consulting is good for you. And people's person. That's so. You do not know how. Consultants are always working with people. We're not the people. If you don't like people, if you're not good at relationships, you can't start up, small talks. Not exactly the business for you. So, moving on. Technology. When I say technology, I mean security vendors and service providers, large service providers. So what do they have if you want to go job hunting at these people? So first, they have consultants as well. But they have very goal-oriented specific consultants. So if I'm a product company, I want to be able to send you a consultant that will tell you that you basically need my product. In an unbiased way, okay, somewhat. But I would still need to have some sort of rhyme and reason to the fact that you need the product. Some companies have actual consulting practices, small, just to support the overall business that they have. So you would see this existence of consultants within specific security vendors. It's not uncommon, but just be able to understand that it's not a real consultant that works for a consulting company. So all of the benefits and all of the supporting environment that a consultancy can provide you will not be there. So, prioritize it. If you want to be a consultant, that's probably not the best place. Then you have the R&D guys, the guys that do the actual research. When you hear about, the latest and greatest, and you see large reports from IT security companies, not specifically consulting companies, this will always be the department that will do it. The guys that basically do research with the intention to develop their product, okay? Think of it of people that try to develop new signatures. If I have an IDS or IPS, so I'll be in the R&D department and I'll be searching for new stuff, but I will write my report about this latest and greatest attack, but I would also make a signature for that specific attack, so my security vendor could actually spot it. So if you want security research positions, security vendors are the place to go to. They're highly seeked out for. It's quite a lucrative position, and if you're not a people person, that's a great place to be in. Sometimes another thing that you see is developers. So I have a friend that wanted to go into the business, and one of the first things that he said, I'm a developer. I want to work as a developer and a security vendor. And that's a mistake. You don't get to advance if you work as a developer. You just need to know that. If you're a developer and you want to convert into IT security, do not go and be a developer in an IT security company. you'll not learn security for that, okay? You'll create and you'll develop. You would have done the exact same thing that you would have done in your previous firm, okay? So my personal advice, and I've seen it a lot, just don't go. If you want to be a developer, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with developing, but just keep in mind. Another thing that you would very commonly have is pre-sale guys. So pre-sale guys tend to be very technical people. So you're like, what, salespeople are technical? So no, so the pre-sale guys are the guys that the client is not sure that he is about to buy this product of ours. So the pre-sale guy is basically an engineer that is sent over to the client side and sets up the system to work just for a short time period so the client will see the value of the system. So you have people that are sent in a very short time period and they need to know the product the best way that they can so the client will see the value of the specific product. So pre-sale, it might not sound sexy, but it's actually a very interesting line of work because they get to have good client interaction. They really contribute to the company. You actually contribute to having a sale and showing how good the technology that you're working for can improve certain clients, and they get to be very technical. So it's a very good business to be in. Most of the pre-sale guys that I know are highly technical. They love what they do. And you have engineers. Engineers are basically the support people that run the product on the daily basis. So if you see a security engineer within a product company, would most likely be a security engineer that supports the overall activity of that specific product residing in client sides. So just to keep that in mind. Lastly, you have account people. Account people are not technical people. They're people's people. They're sales, okay? I want you to buy more products. I want to, give you a discount, whatever it is. They want to keep that client on. So if you're looking into getting to the business, it's not a technical way to get into that business. But sometimes if you just have, you're older, you have the more, the experienced approach into this, it could be a very good job for you as well. And it is within cybersecurity. It's a very stable work. I have a lot of friends that work in security vendors, highly technical people, and you don't get to travel, which is good. So if you like your house and you want to stay in it, so you have plenty of stuff. Good compensation, and if you even got in before an IPO, before the company was actually got IPO, so you could have very good compensation. Sometimes even after, it depends on the type of the company. Please keep in mind, and that's something that I've seen with a lot of people that do R&D. When you do R&D, you only do R&D. So I've had friends that one of the reasons that they left pen testing was, we just didn't get enough R&D time. We want to do more research. We want to get to know more stuff. Because when you do pen testing, you don't really do research. You do a specific type of research to help your project. But you see sometimes, you spot that there is a way in, but you need a week. You need a week to develop it. But there's no budget in the pen test to do it. So, and a lot of pen testers get frustrated and they say, well, I want to move on to R&D work. Because I want to do that full time. I've fallen in love with this. Most of the guys that have done this transition would leave the R&D company within 2 years. Because it's the same thing. You're doing the same thing. You're more likely supporting a specific product, therefore finding out specific vulnerabilities that are focused on that specific vector. If you're doing, web, you will only do web. You will not touch anything which is infrastructure. Whereas a consultant, a pen tester, does everything. So he gets exposed to everything. So keep that in mind. Sometimes I have friends that have stayed in R&D for, I think, 5 years already. So, it could be a stable business and it could be something that you move onto management or whatever you want. it's low pressure. People that do R&D or whatever, it's mostly low pressure. You don't really get pressured into it. The $75 billion industry would buy the product almost without it needing to actually work. Okay? It sounds funny, but every product, okay, you would buy it and you would not exactly test that it's actually doing the work. Sometimes you just need to fill in that specific product saying, okay, we have an IDS in place. Fortunately, it doesn't have to be an actual good IDS. So keep that in mind. So there's plenty of money in that industry. Now let's move on to consumers. So how would, if you're actually looking for work and you don't want to work for a company that does IT security, either consulting or technology, you could just go work at what we call clients, but organizations that have their own cybersecurity departments. So how would that kind of department look like, and what would be the people working there? So when you go on LinkedIn and you're like, I see this position, what does that actually mean? So first, most organizations will look something like this. Okay? You'd have variations of this, but first thing you'll have, which is the Chief Information Security Officer, you have some sort of governance department, a threat vulnerability management department, a data protection, a SOC, and a small consulting operation, depending on the size of the business. It will always look very similar to this. Some will be different names, like some would say, and that's exactly, you'd say the CISO would be head of IT security, not exactly cyber, so many variants, but they would basically do just about the same thing. So the first guy, the CISO, he's the foremost guy for everything IT security within the organization. Okay, they like to say that he's the trusted advisor. If the CEO wants to talk about IT security, he will ask the CISO you will call the CISO for a chat. These are mostly executive level roles, okay? You're not from the business, you're probably not going to be the first, it's probably not going to be the first job that you get. They're accountable for everything. So basically, when you look at cybersecurity, the CEO delegates. The CEO needs to handle cybersecurity as well, but he delegates and creates this person called, Chief Cybersecurity Officer or Information Security Officer, the CISO, and says, okay, you'd be my guy, responsible and accountable. That's why a lot of times when big breaches happen, the CISO leaves. It's a common practice that he's accountable for it. If he didn't do the right things, if he's really accountable for it, he would most likely be replaced. You'd see it in a lot of the major breaches. You'd be surprised that a lot of these people are not technical. So if you get into an interview and along the way the CISO interviews you, do not be surprised that it's more a one-on-one interview, that he just wants to get to know you. He wants to see if you're someone that can work with him. A lot of times, because these are executives, they want to make sure that if you're working with another department, let's say you're their guy for software security, if you're working with the developers within the company, you're a person that they can work with you. Okay, you're a somewhat people's person, at least for developers. So don't be afraid of, interviewing with the big boss. He would not always be technical, and he doesn't always care about technical because he would believe that, certain things could be built along the way. The first department I'll talk about is governance. People often hear about governance, okay, that's the boring stuff, but not necessarily. So the governance department is mostly run by someone that has the title of Manager of Cybersecurity Governance Program, surprising. And the first thing it does is that it creates all of the policies and the procedures for organizations. So depending on the industry that you're in, you have to have some sort of cybersecurity policy and governance program in place. You have to say, okay, this is what we're telling our people to do or not to do. This is how our servers, how our IT guys are functioning, and these are the policies that we have. And you have to have someone that is basically in charge of it. As you might guess, not necessarily a technical person running it, or technical individuals, depending on the specifics of the organization. Sometimes these people get the work of disaster recovery and business continuity management. And so you might see positions that are for DR. So DR, disaster recovery, is somewhat related to cybersecurity. And it is somewhat a way to get into cybersecurity, but it's not necessarily cybersecurity. So you might see openings for there. They also manage the risk management program within the organization, which that is, I think, the more interesting part of their work. They're the guys that say basically, okay, we had a breach, okay, because a pen test found it. Now, what sort of risk does it impose on our organization, and how do we fix it? So they have an overarching view on what goes on within the organization. So someone with experience, very related. They also handle all of the compliance. You know, the talk before that mentioned PCI. So they'll be the ones that will work with the consultants, say, okay, are we compliant or are we not? And regulations and things of that sort. Another department will be the Threat and Vulnerability Management Department. Sorry. So these are the technical guys. If a pen tester wants to retire, he would often go into one of these departments. He doesn't want to travel anymore. He wants to do his stuff, but on one client. And you'd be surprised, because sometimes you just want to spend your time on one client. Sometimes you're like, I keep seeing this problem happening over and over. Give me one environment that I can make sure that I can fix it. So you'd see a lot of highly technical people there, basically handling all of the penetration testing work, or threat modeling. Threat modeling is the concept of not doing actual penetration testing, but finding the threats that could relate to an application or an infrastructure. They would actually audit everything that is being done in terms of mitigation. So if a finding has specifically stated that you have to do this, you have to create this patch, you have to improve this development, things of that sort. They're the guys that would say, okay, you did this, but it didn't resolve it because I retested it, and that's the problem. They will also manage the software security, so they'll work with the developers to make sure that they're coding the way that they should, make sure that there's training, adequate training within the organization. Very technical people, and I think it's kind of challenging work. Another part will be the data protection. So you'd hear head of data protection. Data protection is a subset of cybersecurity that is specifically how we handle data. Okay, so you've probably heard of products that do DLP work, which is data leak or data loss management products. These are the guys that would say, okay, this is the way we classify data within our organization by this, by this system of classification, sensitive, non-sensitive, public, whatever they decide. This is the technology that will support this specific classification method, and they will audit it to make sure that it works adequately. They're the ones that will go and seek out each and every department within the organization and work with them. I'll go and work with the help desk to make sure that we're working on our encryption the way that we should, because we have to have full disk encryption. So these will work with each and every person within the organization to make sure that they're on track. So plenty of roles there, sometimes managerial, sometimes technical, depending on the size of the organization. A lot of people that come from consultants as technology consultants, because one of the practices of technology consultants is DLP systems. DLP is very similar. It is also a technology that requires a process behind it. It's a good place to transition into, either to or from, depending on where you come from. So, another one. Then you have the SOC, the Security Operations Center. Most of the positions that you would see out there are for SOC analysts. So these are the guys that basically monitor everything that goes on within an organization on every part of your infrastructure. Okay? We all know that we cannot, I mean, the perception within IT security in recent years have changed from perimeter security to monitoring, okay? The old conception was we will defend our perimeter as hard as possible and we will not get the attackers into the organizations. And we have understood that this is a fallacy and will not work. They will get into the organization, therefore we need to monitor them. So as closely monitored as we are, we have a way to actually find them. So the SOC would actually be the staff that monitors each and every part of the network, and the analysts will be the one analyzing each and every request, each and every suspicious activity. So they would have a lot of times similarities to incident responders, but at a triage level. Okay, they just start. They know that they have a procedure they have to follow, so they start it. It's a good place to go into the business because you need to have some background, but that background can be covered with certifications or with formal education, and it's very welcoming to start as an analyst within a SOC department. In some businesses, you also have consulting. So healthcare and financial organizations have come to the conclusion that they're spending a lot of money on consulting work. And they could basically do it on their own for highly critical systems. So you would have very good security practices for consulting within large organizations. And of course, they have all the benefits of not traveling and not having as much stress as the standard consulting, but they'll be highly technical or highly technology oriented and highly mission critical, that they really help the organization. It's kind of rare nowadays. I mean, it's a growing thing, but it's not something that is so common. As I said throughout this, stable work, everything is reasonable. It's a good thing to start with. It's a good way to get in, and you're working on the same environment, which, as a consultant, I can tell you, it's something which is exciting because you really get to improve something. You really have your, you have your thing to help fix and mend. To close this out, we know that not everybody meets the requirements that we write when we recruit. It is completely legit to try and get a job that you don't know for 100% that you do fit, but you believe that you have the capabilities to learn for it and to develop onto it. We, as recruiters, understand that. Okay, when we're on a call with someone, we know that, he doesn't tick all of the boxes, but he has the right potential. Please learn how to write a CV. It is so important. Please remember that because I'm the technical guy and I'll be a manager getting this would have gone through 4 recruiters until I will get the CV. It's no different within any other company. Just find the right way to write your CV on a 1 page. Nobody looks after, the second page, and you mostly drop, CVs that have 2 pages, or just don't go after half of the first page. So please do not write paragraphs of how lovely you are. Be very precise and focused. Every CV has to be focused to the position you're applying to. Don't have a standard one. You have to fit it to fit the right position. Okay? So you need to fit it a bit, but it's not something that is too hard to do. You have to love this business. I can't even extend how much you have to love this business to be good at it. Your friends have to be IT security guys because you want to talk to them about it. That's one of the first things that you're reading in the morning is IT security news. You have to go to conferences. You have to network with the right people. You have to spend enough time. Okay? So many jobs are just not like that. I come from a line of bakers. Okay? We have been baking since, 17th century, I think. And you can go home and shut everything off. Still be a great baker afterwards. That's not the way it works with cybersecurity. Okay? You have to give your soul into it. Not everybody wants that work-life balance. Someone wants to be able to, to shut it down and cut it off and still be good at their practice. I don't believe that IT security is the right place for that person. But, I'm not the expert. I just have some sort of experience of a decade worth of experience in this industry. So that's it, guys. I think I'm almost exactly on time. Thanks. Any questions? No? That's good as well.